Well, hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 338 for Friday, January 17th, 2024. What's happening to business messaging? From Zenatta Consulting, I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the show.
Tyler, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't dying here. I'm back. I'm back from India. What a trip, my friend. It was the Zoho Global Partner Conference. It's where they invite the premium partners from, well, globally. There were a couple people there that might have been from other planets, but I think most were from Earth. And they got us all together in Chennai, India, which I found out is pronounced Chennai. Chennai, not I. We've been mispronouncing it the whole time. Kind of like Chennai, you died on a Thursday. Forrest Gump. Yeah. Remember that? So anyway, yeah,
Very nice.
that was it. But it was a good time. And while we were over there, we happened to be awarded a couple of things. We received the Global Partner of the Year for Zoho CX Suite 2024. You ask yourself, what's CX Suite? Well, funny story. I'm sitting there in the audience. We don't know what's going to happen. I'm sitting next to John Mark Bantock from Catalyst Connect and Sagar from ZBrains. And we're sitting there and they go, and up next is the award for Global Partner for CX Suite 2024. And I go, what's CX Suite? And they go, I don't know. I've never heard of it. What is it? I don't know. I've never heard of it. They said Zenatta Consulting. Turns out it's not really a suite. It's a group of products around customer experience. So CRM, Desk, everything you kind of see maybe in CRM plus 2 or 3 other applications in there. So a fantastic award. Turns out we did more, better, and everything with all of those applications in 2024. So I was pretty stoked about that. And then we weren't done there. We got the Global Partner of the Year for the USA 2024 as well. So you know what? It was worth it. I have to say though, what a trip. On the way there, British Airways, good Lord, the flight into London for my connection was about 2.5 hours late. So I missed my connection to Chennai and had to go spend 24 hours in London, which, wouldn't be bad, except that I guess at Heathrow Airport, you need to get there like 2.5, 3 hours ahead of time. 4 hours is safe just to get there and get through. So really just by the time all of the debacle ended and I got to my hotel room, I just went to bed, got up in the morning, went back to the airport and hung out at the lounge all day. But then the flight back was uneventful, but still it took, I think, door to door almost 30 hours, which is about as best you could do. It was pretty crazy, but well worth the time. It was great seeing everybody. Thank you to everyone at Zoho for putting it on. It was a good time had by all. And I understand, like, Greg filled in last week and you had more news than you could handle. It was like,
just so many stories. And this week, quite the opposite. Might be a spoiler alert, maybe a quicker news week. Just not a ton going on. So we'll cover the important stuff, but it's not going to be quite as long as our marathon of a show last week.
Yes. Well, that's good because I'm still recovering. I got back. It was funny. I left Chennai. I still can't say it the way. Anyway, I left at 3:30 a.m. on Friday. And because of time zones and going against everything, 30 hours later, I landed here at 6 p.m. on Friday. And so it's been almost a week I've been back, and I'm still not right. I mean, I tell you what, when you're on the other side of the world, so maybe it's good it's a short news week because my brain is not quite fully
hanging on by
today.
A thread.
Barely, yes. The thread's frayed, I tell you. So anyway, with that, let's get right on into the news, shall we?
Junk data can clog up your CRM, making it harder to focus on the records that matter. Next thing you know, you've got a mountain of records to sort through, and you're not even sure where to start. This is why we created the Zenatta Health Check for Zoho CRM. This extension reads your Zoho CRM's users, leads, deals, accounts, contacts, and tasks data and provides you with a monthly summary straight to your inbox of some of the key indicators of data quality for these core modules. With the Zenatta Health Check, you'll get notified in your monthly report whether or not you have unused Zoho CRM licenses, or if you have contacts missing email addresses, or accounts with no associated contacts. In addition, you'll get links to helpful videos and blogs from the Zenatta resource library showing you how you can clean up your system and keep it clean. We also include buttons on each of the core modules that let you generate your health check report whenever you need it. The Zenatta Health Check for Zoho CRM. A clean system is a better system. Download today on the Zoho Marketplace.
Oh yeah, buy a thread, Zoho News. But first, a word from our sponsor, us. Left that out. Anyway, hey, let's start with you can simplify Zoho API integration with Deluge's Invoke API task. So how's this going to simplify things for people, Tyler?
It's kind of an interesting one. So normally when you're using a API call, you essentially are inserting like the URL, and then it's really the last kind of section of the URL that determines what's going to happen. So it'd be like, api.zohocrm.com/lead, and then you're putting in some data and you're doing a put, which tells it to do a create of a lead, with that data.
Right.
The challenge with that is that if there's a case where, let's say, you were to migrate the data center for your instance, or maybe you did a copy customization to someone in a different data center, or even potentially one of the ways I'm thinking this might be useful is like API versioning. If Zoho was to change something about the base URL, you might have to make changes across your code. Basically what they're doing here is they're saying, hey, rather than putting in that full URL every time, if you scroll up just a little bit to that like colored section, I think that's the most useful part in the green there, or the gray. So basically, rather than putting in the Zoho CRM URL, you're just calling the service Zoho CRM, because the base URL is going to be the same for every API call. Then that path and the type is really determining what you're going to do with that API. So you'll see in there, like there is V7 in the path. So you might have to make some changes for APIs, but maybe not based on every URL change. Kind of a nice thing just to maybe unify a bit more of the structure of your calls. The big one there, I would just think, is a bit of redundancy for any URL changes in the future. They have made changes to that before. Obviously, they're always going to try to avoid changing a base URL, but this does just make it a little bit easier if you are going to have any changes in the future, where you might not have to go in and update every single piece of code that's in your system. So definitely a nice one. I would say, like, if you already have a bunch of work completed, I wouldn't worry about switching it all over to this. But if there was going to be a change down the line and you were going to need to make changes, you might want to just swap over to this method. It's just going to be a little bit more future-proof. But yeah, nothing major, but kind of a nice one for those cases where there might be changes down the line.
Very nice. Alrighty, and WhatsApp for business. So basically in the CRM, Zoho's been working a lot getting some WhatsApp integration. It's used globally. When I was over in India, everybody was just communicating through WhatsApp. It's kind of the only way to go. Anyway, they made some changes. You can now initiate a chat manually, which you couldn't do before. You have threaded replies, which I think was probably one of the more useful. I imagine both those are fairly useful. And you can do some audio previews. So fairly nice, the ability to actually implement a manual chat. Because before it had to be what? You had to be responding.
It was workflows. I mean, it was basically like you were able to send them with workflows was the primary way to like initiate a new conversation. But if you're in a business where maybe it's a bit more high touch or white glove, and you want to give your sales reps the ability to manually initiate one to a customer based on their judgment, right? Rather than it having to be some type of automated workflow. You're just able to do that now through like a messaging tab. Looks pretty nice. Like the UI of the tab looks pretty good. It looks like, a traditional messenger. So really cool. You do still need to initiate, it seems like to me, you need to initiate these messages with a template still. And that's really a requirement that Meta institutes. You need to tell them what types of things you're going to send and whether they're transactional or marketing, right? So that rule is kind of still going to apply here. But you are now just opening up that door to a bit more flexibility for your team if they want to proactively send a WhatsApp message outside of an automated process.
Yeah. And all of the templates need to be approved by Meta ahead of time. Yes?
Correct. Yeah. Quick approval
so.
process. It's really similar to like your approval in campaigns where it's like a couple minutes generally. And it's going to be done. They're just making sure you're not like, sending inappropriate graphic, offensive content through their platform. But otherwise, you're basically going to get auto approved.
Yeah. And now you can do threaded replies, which I imagine is extremely helpful if you have a whole bunch of messages and you're wanting to reply to a specific message in the thread. You can now just reply to that. Gives you a very nice threaded reply. And you've got audio previews as well, which I'm not even sure what these are. What do these do?
So I think this would just be like if they were to send you an audio message through a text.
You can listen to it.
You can kind of just listen to it directly through the UI.
Very, very, very nice. All right. CRM team keeps building up more WhatsApp. I imagine this has just got to be one of their most, especially internationally, one of the biggest feature requests they have. In the States, we focus on SMS integration, which is, but WhatsApp, much easier to do across the board. You're not having to work with telephony providers. You're not having to do any of that to capture the information. Definitely a better way to go. All right, moving on with the news. Hey, important update. You've got mandatory email verification in for Zoho Analytics users. This is a trend. This has been going on for a while across every single application. Basically, if you haven't updated your SPF and your DKIM records, you're going to have to, or your mail is not going to be sent. So this starts, you have to get this done. Well, you've got to get this done in the next 2 weeks. So don't dilly-dally. It's not hard. You're basically going to have to go into your DNS settings. You're going to need to get the SPF and the DKIM records from Zoho. Then you go into your DNS and you copy them into your DNS and you add them in there and away you go. Very, very,
and
very
if you're
simple,
using a lot of Zoho apps, your SPF is probably already done. Those are generally going to be the same. It's going to be Zeptomail or Transmail, just depending on basically when you turned on Zoho. It's really the DKIM that's unique for each application. Honestly, with all of these going out, we've had them for CRM, we've had them for Desk. My recommendation is any of the Zoho apps that you have that are sending out emails. With analytics, it's like, hey, every Monday I get my pivot table emailed out to me, right? Like it's those types of notifications. Just go ahead and do your DKIM for all of them. You're going to need to eventually, even if you're using an app and they haven't made it mandatory yet, they're going to. This is essentially something that helps Zoho and you, right? It makes sure your email gets delivered and it makes sure that their mail servers aren't sending undeliverable emails, right? Like that's a big driver for why they're pushing these. So while you're in there, you've already logged into GoDaddy or Bluehost or wherever you have your domain, just go app by app, add all your DKIMs. It's going to take you 10 minutes, and then you won't really need to worry about this going forward.
Yep. All righty, and moving on, we've got some Zoho Analytics updates. You're saying that most of these just seem to be some bug fixes, some quick enhancements.
Yeah, so essentially the mobile app for Zoho Analytics, while it's functional, there was always little odds and ends things that would just be a little weird. So you might go into a dashboard on your browser and say, hey, I want to apply this theme to it, this color, right? So if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see it's all these kind of gradients of blue. Then you'd go and open it up on the mobile device and it would look different. And all the data would be the same. The formatting would be generally the same, but like your color themes and things like that just wouldn't apply. So they're working on updating those so that they basically just apply across the board. They're also enabling more visualization options for the mobile app. One of the big things to keep in mind is like you make a report that, let's say, is a bar chart. While you're viewing that, you can toggle the report type to other options, which you might want to do on your mobile device, because something might look bad as a bar chart and you turn it into a pie chart. Now it's more viewable on mobile. So you'll be able to do that with more different types of data. They're improving the support for some of the like non-report elements on a dashboard, like text, image, and embeds, just so that those, again, just look a little bit more proper. And then down below this formatting section, this is really what I would consider to be like bug fix type stuff. Really, it's just that like you would make a dashboard, you'd pull it up on mobile and it would just look weird, right? It wouldn't look right. Like the sizing of things would be off. So their goal here is just to make sure that those look more consistent across the entirety of the experience, whether you're looking on a browser or you're looking on your mobile device. Ideally, right, it should always be essentially the same. And that's a lot of this work is just going towards that goal.
Yep, across the board. Some more dashboard enhancements. Anyway, take a look at this article because there's quite a bit of little things that have been put in, but analytics team keep plugging away. And then to wrap up the news, Tyler, we have a story that we're kind of scratching our heads about here a little bit, which is you now have a rich text editor in Zoho Mail for Android. So I guess by process of elimination, I've never used Zoho Mail on Android before, but I guess it was just plain text. And now, which is just weird, but now it's not. Now you have, is anybody using Zoho Mail on Android? Let us know. This is the
like genuine. This isn't like us trying to goose the algorithm and get more comments. We're genuinely curious. Was this not supported before this update? Could you not do a bulleted list on Zoho Mail on Android up until this update? Because the way it reads is it seems like you couldn't. So either we're crazy, we're illiterate, or you couldn't do this before. And I'd love to know which one it is. When
you received an email, was it just all converted to plain text? I'm just, I'm a little baffled. I need to know. So please, someone let us know. But hey, if you are an Android user, if you were an Android user and what we think was true, you wouldn't use Zoho Mail on Android, right?
You would essentially have moved off of it probably at that point.
Moved off of it, right? But if you decided I'll stick with it because I have to, then woohoo, good stuff's happened. So. All right. And with that, let's get to our implementation of the week.
All right. So implementation of the week this week built out by Ben and JP on the Zenatta team. This is essentially just a tight integration for Zoho Bookings and Zoho CRM to manage deal stage movement throughout a multi-meeting sales pipeline. We will kind of highlight on the show occasionally that Bookings is not a perfect fit for everybody. It does have some functional limitations. In this case, we're using Bookings for a group of employees at our client's company that essentially only are going to get meetings on their calendar through Zoho Bookings. So in that case, it actually doesn't have a lot of those issues with calendar syncs. Like if we know that everything is going to be booked through here, it does work pretty consistently, right, at managing that calendar. And so really you can think about this implementation like, let's say we have a pipeline and they have 3 different meetings that are going to occur before we're going to write up and send a proposal. What we did is we went into Zoho Bookings and we set up different service types for each of these types of meetings. So you can think about it like meeting 1, meeting 2, and meeting 3. Then as each of those different types of meetings get booked, we check the data about the client who booked them. We use that data to find the contact in CRM that matches it. So using email, phone number, right, data like that. And then we check for that contact if they have open deals that are in pipeline. If they don't have one, we go ahead and create one because clearly there was an error somewhere. If they're booking like the second meeting for their sales process, we know they should have a deal. And if they do have an open deal, we go ahead and update that stage appropriately based on the type of service that's been booked. So kind of a simple one here, nothing too crazy. It just is nice for, those businesses that have a longer funnel. Like some people, it's like, you know what? No, I've got one meeting. They're qualified. They're not. I'm going to send them a quote for the products. For other people, you might have a sales pipeline that takes 2, 3, 4, 5 months, right? And you're going to meet with team number one. And then if you kind of pass that round, you're going to meet with their boss. And then maybe at the end, you're going to meet with like the final decision maker at their company. And moving these deal stages through just eliminates a manual step that the employee has to do. And at more of a managerial level, if we're going to do our forecasting, it's like, hey, if we're on meeting number 3, we have a pretty high likelihood of winning this. And so if we're going to look at like our expected revenue for next quarter, making sure that these deal stages are perfectly accurate is really useful at that leadership and management level. So big shout out to Ben and JP. Again, in the scope of things that we build, this one is relatively simple. It's like booking triggers a function. We search based on email, little bit of logic about if there is or isn't a deal, and then we're just updating a deal stage. But these will probably dovetail into future things, like if that third meeting goes well and we indicate that, maybe it auto-gens a proposal or it, preps up future items that we're going to do. But for right now, it's just a really easy way to essentially manage your pipeline stages automatically without having a user just like open it up and click a button just to move a stage.
Very, very nice. Very nice. And Zoho Bookings, I tell you, while I was in India, I think there are some good things coming for that. So hopefully, like a lot of those little things that have been missing, I think they might be coming, and that will be a very good thing.
I'd love to move over. I mean, it's not like
I would too.
It's not like I'm so in love with Calendly. It's just solid, and I never get double booked, right? So I use it. If I felt the same way about bookings, I mean, hey, we'd save a couple grand a year just moving everyone over.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, right?
I know. Hey, it's $3,000. I just paid the bill. So,
Especially too, I mean, you think about one of the big things any time that you can bring another app into Zoho One is it makes it so much easier to administer that app, right? So now it's just like create a user type in bookings, associate it to a group at the Zoho One level. And then whenever we hire, let's say, a consultant, we just put them in that group, and then they get all the service types created, all the templates created. Whereas in Calendly right now, like that's a manual process. We just have to go in, and Josh has to go in. He sets up all the different things they need and documents them. And sure would be nice to not have to do that. So we're waiting for the day I can move over. I would love to.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, with that, let's head over to Club Zenatta and check out our code share of the week. All right, Eddie has come through here with get custom lookup fields from a desk ticket via API. And you were telling me before the show, this is more of a public service announcement saying that basically what I've highlighted here on the screen, it's you need to put feature flags lookup. You need to manually call for this data, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So this one is really one of those cases where this is something someone's going to Google search, in 6 months. They're going to be like, why the heck are my custom lookup fields not showing up when I get ticket data? Because if, let's say you add a custom field in CRM, you make a query, it's going to show up. You do it in books, it's going to show up. You do it in any Zoho app, it's going to show up in the default call. In this case, custom lookup fields, you just have to include this extra little line in your header that basically is specifically asking for those fields. So if you are currently going down this rabbit hole, you're welcome. This is how you do it. I think we had to go back and forth with support and try out a bunch of different random stuff to make this one work. So we thought, hey, let's just put it out there for people and ideally save them that same pain and suffering in the future.
Fantastic. And if you don't know, Club Zenatta is our online community, and I've been gone a week. So there's, in the last week, 74 new items of general discussion, 30. We post all the news here in real time. Things people notice in Zoho, because sometimes they just don't publish article. They just change things and we figure it out. Questions, we'll be talking about one of those later on. Anyway, all of your video tutorial requests, all that stuff, all sits down over here at Club Zenatta, club.zenatta.com. We call it Club Z affectionately, Club Z, because Zenatta's got a lot of syllables in it. So anyway, head over to club.zenatta.com. Please join our community. All we ask is your email. And with that, let's head over to just the zenatta.com without the club in front of it and see what we've got going on over there. Well, this is what is Zoho One? Tyler, I know every single year we do a full in-depth review of Zoho One. This is more of a, hey, here's what it is, here's why you want it. And I understand that I've been left out this year, and you actually went ahead and did the full app by app by app review, and that's coming out maybe next week or something like that. The latest, greatest update on that.
Should be out next week. Yeah, and like you mentioned, this one's just more of a high-level summary. Like, I've been getting some questions on a lot of my videos lately have been questions I've been getting from prospects, and had a couple people that are just a little bit confused about like the pricing and if it makes sense for them and like what exactly am I going to get with all these. I also do highlight in this one kind of the unified page, the unified dashboard, and the fact that from one URL you can access all these different applications. And so kind of just going through that at a high level here for people, as it's just been a question I've been getting more and more of. I think Zoho is kind of doing a better job at making people aware of this bundle, but not everybody makes sense of it. And honestly, I think a lot of people, when they look at it and they see the price, they're like, what am I missing here? Why is this so cheap? And that's genuinely not me doing like a plug or like fluff for Zoho. It's like weirdly inexpensive on that all employee pricing. And so I think a lot of people are like, okay, what am I not getting here? So I wanted to just go over, no, it is ridiculously cheap. You are getting all of these apps, and here's how it looks when you put it all together. So hopefully this will be useful for those that maybe are like, have heard about Zoho One or looking at it, but aren't really sure if it makes sense for their organization.
Yeah, fantastic. All righty. And with that, let's head over to YouTube and look at our tips of the week. Well, we did drop 2 videos this week, and we just discussed this one. So as we always do, we'll take kind of some major videos and we'll do a text breakdown for those who just like to read rather than watch a video. So if you would like to watch this, it's a 21-minute video on what Zoho One is and how it works. And then you dropped another tip in here this week, which you're pretty excited about, which is Zoho's GenAI Zia large language model for Zoho Desk customer support AI. So what has Zoho done here?
So this is a cool one. I think, yeah, because you were out last week, so I don't think you saw this in the news. This is a really cool implementation of an LLM. So basically when a ticket comes in, it's going to read through your knowledge base and write you a reply if it finds stuff that it is matches what was requested, which you can literally just click one button and it drops that whole reply into the ticket and you can send it out. You can have it make adjustments to it, make it longer, make it shorter, make it funnier, make it more serious. And then one of the cool things is that they have a baked in feedback loop. So if the AI can't find a good article to answer it, it'll say, hey man, I'm not able to help here. Please click this button and we'll log it in the list of things that you need to teach me, right? So that you have that nice loop to be continuously improving it. This is really cool. I mean, you're at a point where if you had a really good knowledge base, half of your tickets, let's say, you might be able to answer by just opening them, clicking use as reply, maybe cleaning it up a little. And obviously you want to read through it, make sure it's correct. Right. But it is really cool. And as Zoho is rolling out their own LLM, we kind of talked about it a couple weeks ago for CRM, and then now for Zoho Desk, they're taking a unique approach where really all this data is just coming from inside of your platform, right? So you have the opportunity to use ChatGPT, and they kind of highlight this in the article about CRM, where ChatGPT is cool, but it's going to pull from the open web, right? And so in some use cases, that's really great. In others, it's not so great. Something like this, where I'm going to answer a ticket about a refund policy, that cannot be pulling from the open web, right? Like we need that to know that it's only going to get to use what we've told it is accurate about our policies. And so baking these in that are more constrained to your knowledge base so that you can more reliably use them, I think is like what someone like me is waiting for, right? Because I just don't trust, as great as ChatGPT is, I don't want it answering questions that my customers are asking, because it could just be wrong, right? It could go and look at a refund policy and maybe it grabs it from Zoho's website, right? And now it tells our customer something incorrect. So really cool. I'm excited to see this as they look to plug this LLM that they've built into more applications with those constraints about only really showing accurate things that you've provided it.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a big year for AI and Zoho. That's kind of course, a major topic over at the Global Partner Conference as we were going through. And it seems they're on it. They cut a deal. They bought a bunch of hardware from NVIDIA. They're doing some interesting stuff there. So good stuff. And as always, if you don't know, well, YouTube is where we keep all of our videos. So, the best way to find out, hey, when has Zenatta released a new video, is to subscribe to our channel, hit the bell so you get notifications anytime that we release a new video. And I understand you're on a mission this year, Tyler. We're going to drop not one, but you're hoping to drop two new tip videos a week on top of the CRM Zen Show, on top of our webinars. Is that correct?
That's kind of the goal. Yeah, trying to just get even more content out, kind of splitting it into some of the more traditional tutorials about the things that, there's always those features where we open up the application and we build it together. And then kind of peppering in some of these about just like big updates that I want to make sure everybody sees in a bit more detail. Obviously, we highlight them on a high level on a weekly basis with the CRM Zen Show, but something like that AI tool for desk, it's like, no, we could talk for like 10 or 20 minutes about that and how we would use it and concerns we have. And we just don't always have time for it on the show. So trying to drop in a little bit more detailed coverage on some of those news stories. And then, as I've done in the past, sometimes I cover a news story and I get a bunch of comments saying, hey, we'd love if you would do this in app. I'll just record another video and we'll make those more about how to use them. And I'll do the screen share, more of the traditional methods. So as we're putting out these videos to everybody, make sure to leave those comments. If there's ever something that I cover that you want a bit more detail on, that will get right onto my list if I see those comments come in. Because our whole goal is just to make things that you all find useful.
All right. And with that, before we wrap the show, we've got a Zaz. Or our question of the week. Azaz lives. Hey, Ellen Raj has a very long question, but to kind of sum this up, she has sales reps. When they're going through a deal, there's a lot of fields that they need to fill in. There's some tasks that need to be set. Oftentimes they miss that. And so she built a blueprint around this to kind of hopefully step everybody through it, but that's still not working. And she's just wondering, is there a better way? And I know we were looking at this. There's so many variables here when doing something like this.
This is a good question, Ellen. Generally, the solution is kind of combining blueprints with workflows. So one of the things she highlights is that in her blueprint, let's say I move from stage 1 to stage 2, the blueprint can create a task. Well, what happens if I want 2 tasks created as part of that blueprint stage? Well, SOL, unless you add a workflow. So a lot of the times what we end up doing, if we have a blueprinted process that needs a bit more workflow automation than the blueprint itself can support, is I will create the blueprint, and the blueprint's job is going to be to manage the stage movements, require the fields, require the file uploads, but the automated actions that will occur once it moves to that second stage, I will build workflows to handle those. Because you might have a workflow where when I go from stage 1 to stage 2, I'm going to create 3 tasks, which a workflow can do no problem. And I'm going to run a little deluge function that's going to move the most recent attachment into WorkDrive, right? And so you're kind of like building out a workflow that augments the blueprint itself. Blueprints are great for the process management that you're talking about. And I don't recommend that you toss the whole idea of a blueprint. I think you're on the right track there. It's just sometimes that you need a bit more powerful automation. And that's where you're going to find that the workflows are they scale a bit better for those like larger sets of automated actions that you want to have happen. The alternative is, if you're very comfortable with Deluge, you could just have one Deluge function in your blueprint itself, and that could create 5 tasks and move the attachments over. So that's another way to do it if you want to keep everything hosted just right inside the blueprint itself. But otherwise, I do find a lot of the time, if I don't want to have to write Deluge just to make a task, right, which just makes it harder for you to update or change later, I'll just do some of those things as workflow automations that trigger on the same stage movement as the blueprint.
Yeah, it's one of those things, I think, Ellen, where you have to make a decision oftentimes too as to, how valuable is your time? Is it worth digging into it to do all of this? Because that is why Zoho has built out an entire partner network of consultants like us. I mean, but you don't have to hire us. There are a lot of people out there you can hire who could probably get this done for you in a couple hours and away you go, kind of thing. Because it can get a little tricky and a little complicated. And as we've talked about when we look at our code share every week, sometimes there's all these little things you'll be banging your head against the wall, and you kind of have to decide whether or not it's worth it or not at the end of the day.
Yep.
Well, Tyler, I managed to make it through the show. Now I can go to sleep.
Nap time for
my
Brett.
recovery.
Have some chamomile tea, get all cozy, take a nap.
That's it. Except my schedule seems rather full today, so I don't know if that's going to happen. But
no
anyway.
rest for the wicked.
No, there shouldn't be either. There shouldn't be. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for listening to another or watching another episode of the CRM Zen Show. As always, we would love to talk to you. As I mentioned earlier, if you need help with your Zoho implementation, we are here for you. Just head over to Zenatta.com and click on Book a Meeting. Talking to you in no time at all.
And on the website is also where you'll find complete episodes of the show, as well as links to all the stories we discussed today. If you want that news delivered straight to your inbox every single Monday morning, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter. And last but not least, we always appreciate when you like and subscribe here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We'll see you next Friday.
The CRM Zen Show was produced by Podcaster Zen.
Take care, everybody.